Okay, I know it's not Friday, but it feels like Friday because tomorrow we're going on a cruise. I'm so excited to see our team. Gosh, we've been planning this for so long. Are you excited?
I am beyond excited. So much so that I'm not even telling anybody because I don't want them to be really jealous that we're going on this cruise. But it is, it's something that I'm excited about because we do videos with our entire team that is quite large, and we're all on our own, in our own little space, in our own state. And so we do these videos when we're working, and we'll jump into the Google Meet room and I see them from here up. But now we get to see the other part of their body and hug them and do some team building, because I think that's the biggest takeaway you and Kyle and I have taken away from all of this is having a successful team means lifting up them and making sure that we see them and value them for all the hard work that they're doing, and making sure that we have an opportunity to get to know each other, because we work really hard, but it's in reality to enjoy our life, and so that we can enjoy our families. And if we find a job and a career that we also love at the same time, like we hit the jackpot on this. So I'm excited to be able to see everybody. So the cruise is like secondary to just giving you a hug.
I know. I just love the seeing everybody in just like it's so exciting. It's like a family reunion. I think unfortunately, we have so many people on our team who are pregnant or contractually obligated to not travel. So there's going to be 18 of us altogether out of 31 of us. So it's a little bit more than half of us are coming. But I'm so excited. I just can't wait.
I know.
So
the scavenger hunt is going to be fun and goofy.
I know. It's so great that you guys, the team came up with the best ideas. I just can't wait to see it all come together. But I am excited today because I don't think we've done this for so long, but we get to just chit chat with one another on our podcast today, which is really fun. So yay, I get some sweet Casey time on the podcast. And then in a couple of days, I get to see you in person and give you a great big hug. I'm going to run and tackle you.
So the host and what we are talking about is Surrogacy Is, the podcast, all of the misconceptions.
Oh gosh, yes. Well, we'll see what we can tackle in the time that we have. But yes, let's talk about some of the misconceptions that we hear commonly about surrogacy, and you can thoughtfully debunk them, and I can have a snarky attitude. That's what I'm good at these days. We never get to do this where it's just you and me. And I always am so excited. Like my favorite part of the podcast is always when I just get to talk with you. Just kidding. I mean, I love all of our guests. Don't take that the wrong way. Love our guests. But I feel like we get so little one-on-one time, you and me, because we're always running around doing everything else. And so this is like treasured time.
Do you remember? So Kyle, I think that would be his pastime, is giving us grief when we were working, when Surrogacy has first started, and we were on video together all the time, working on the kind of the different dynamics of, is this surrogate qualified, or are these things going to be concerning, or what agencies will be a good agency? He's like, do you guys need to do that together? And I'm like,
do you have to do that for every surrogate that you talk to?
Yes, I do. Yes, we do. And we got to see each other every day and talk to each other every day.
It probably went on longer
than it probably should
needed
have.
to that way. But yeah, now our pendulum has swung so far in the opposite direction that we're just like on islands.
I know. Well, when you send me
crossing in the night
a voice memo, and you're winding down for the day and you're sending your voice memos, which you haven't done it in a hot minute, FYI.
You haven't either, if we're keeping score.
Okay. All right. Touche. And we would talk about the cases. I think that's it. So I met with a clinic that we are going to start working with more. We have a few cases with them currently. And I met with them this morning, and a lot of the agencies the clinics, when I'm talking with them and telling them that we're an agency and I explain what we do, that we were an advocacy first, we're still doing that, but we're also now an agency. The first thing that they say is, but why? Why would you give options to these women. And I go, who doesn't like options? Who doesn't, as a woman, who doesn't like shopping, but who doesn't like to be able to have all of those resources right in front of them where they can decide what agency they like and what one is going to fit well with what they're looking for in their journey, and that these agencies are all vetted and they're doing things correctly. I think we've created something that's really special and unique. And so I get on these soapbox with these clinics when I'm talking with them, and I get so excited at the very end. I'm like, I'm going to come see you. I'm going to bring you some goodies, and we're going to work together more. And they're all excited because I don't think that they see, I mean, they have a few agencies, but even this clinic said, we are very skeptical of the agencies we're working with because we see so many agencies cutting corners right now. And we need to know that if we're going to refer an agency, that they're doing good work. And I'm like, well, let me tell you, we held out. We didn't want to be an agency. We know there are a lot of agencies that are doing it right. And we wanted to enter into this space when we had something special to offer that was going to elevate the process, that was going to allow for the parents to feel supported and secure and educated in the surrogate. And so I said, let me tell you what we're doing. And it was exciting to share those details. But I also could see like they're shaking their head. Yeah. And it's like, let's be real and say why we've entered into the space. Yes, we've made a few people mad and angry, but it's because we're doing good work and they don't want that competition in the process. Sorry. How did we get started? How did Surrogacy Is form? What was the why behind it?
I feel like I've answered this question for myself so many times, and like thought like why, and I answer this question for myself like every day. Why are we doing this? why did we do this? Why did we start Surrogacy Is? And it hasn't changed, even though what we're doing has changed, or the way that we're going about getting to the finish line and the amount of people that we're able to help is a lot bigger than I first imagined. Like I thought that we would have a small impact, but it would be meaningful and that would be great. But I didn't anticipate how large of an impact we were going to have and how much of a need that there was and how it would be embraced by women who really want to explore surrogacy and want to consider this, but they also feel a little bit scared and vulnerable and don't know who to trust,
or
don't
even what
know
questions to ask.
Yeah. They want to make sure that they're being responsible. These women who decide to be surrogates are mothers. They have families, they have jobs, they have partners, they have children and extended families that have opinions about it. And so it's a really nerve-wracking thing to enter into. And when I remember when I decided to become a surrogate, I knew somebody who had done it. And so I could ask her a lot of questions about the process. But I know a lot of the women who sign up to be surrogates don't know anyone in their life who has done it. And they're so brave and they're jumping in and they're just like trusting that the universe is going to catch them in the right way. And it doesn't always. And I recognized after my first journey, like I could ask this one person who had done it about her experience, but that's one person's limited experience. And I wanted to know so much more. And I went to like YouTube and I went to Google and I just like read as much as I could. I read some weird horror stories on blogs and I watched, like some really short, not, poorly done YouTube videos of like people that weren't professional and that weren't, they were just kind of sharing their experience, but there was like maybe one or two at the time, even publicly sharing anything. And I didn't feel like there was a lot of resources out there for people who want to learn about surrogacy. And so that's why I decided, after working for a couple of different surrogacy agencies, noticing the difference between them, that they're vastly different in the types of parents they work with, the types of support they offer. And surrogates are not going to know that by going online and looking at their website, because they all say the same thing. And you really kind of have to go in blindly. So why we started Surrogacy was so that we could get to know some of the bigger agencies that are out there. Learn about them. Who started this agency? What was your mission? What does your benefit package look like? What type of parents do you work with? What type of support do you offer? Do you have ongoing mental health support for the surrogates? How do you vet the intended parents that you work with? Do you just let anybody who's willing to come in and slap down the money become an intended parent? Do you background check these people? Like, what are you doing to make sure not just pre-screening the surrogate, but also that all parties are prepared to enter into this very delicate arrangement? And we learned a lot. And what I learned about myself early on is that I am an introvert, and this requires a lot of talking to lots of women, which empties my cup. So I was so excited when I started talking to you about what we were doing, and you were like, ooh, I have so many ideas. I want to talk to these women. I love talking to surrogates. I'm so excited to talk to them. And I am too, but also at the end of the day, if I've talked to 9 or 10 people, I'm like so drained that I can't even speak to my own family. So, that's why I hide in the bathtub. But yeah, so it's been cool just to see. We learned so much about so many agencies, and we've helped so many women, over 1,500 women we've helped start their surrogacy journey. That just freaking blows my mind. I can't even believe the ripple effects of that.
And ever growing. I mean, I think when we're all said and done, the impact that we're going to have is profound, honestly. I know. I remember when you and I would have these conversations and you shared kind of some of the videos and content that you were doing and the screening process. And when I did my first journey, I always joke and say I fell into this industry because I had a friend who struggled with infertility, and the desire to be a mom is something I'm really proud of. And knowing that I had this friend who struggled, that's what brought me to this place of like, I can do this. I can help another family in this way. And like you said, I Googled best surrogate agency, and I remember getting a couple different agencies who reached out. One who called me and said, "You're great. I'm in San Diego. We have parents ready to go right now. Why don't you come down? Let's meet and let's start this process." And I remember going, what the heck? No, this doesn't work this way. You don't even know how many pregnancies I've had, if there were any complications. And I realized very quickly that not all agencies look alike, but for somebody who has never gone through this, that can be scary. So I did more research and I was like, that agency is not for me. I was very grateful that I found an agency that was a very beautiful, solid agency that was doing it right. And I had an amazing experience as a surrogate, so much so that I decided I'm entering into the space and I'm changing my career. And who cares that degree that I paid for? I'm going this route in IVF and fertility and surrogacy. And in the years that I was there working, I remember having to educate women as soon as I onboarded them, explaining to them like, okay, you're working with Surrogacy Is, but you might still be shopping. Like, ask these questions. If you're looking at several agencies, ask them, what are the pre-screening items that they're doing? Ask them, do they get life insurance? And if they do, how much? And so I think for me, I was always educating them, let's keep you with our agency and let me explain to you why some of these other agencies are not good agencies. So when the opportunity presented itself, as Kyle and you and I joke and say, jumping on your guys' boat, I was excited because for me, I mean, I think you, Kyle, and I eat, breathe surrogacy. We love it, right? And the education component that comes with this. And we've made a lot of agencies upset because we've then said, no, your pre-screening process is not in line with an agency that if I was having a best friend or sister, I wouldn't send them to you. I wouldn't go to your agency. So for that reason, you haven't made the cut. Sorry. And we've made agencies upset, but it's because for us, we want to be able to sleep at night and we want to be able to know that these agencies are taking care of the journey as a whole and these women who are so courageous in considering surrogacy in the first place. So I'm really proud of what we've done. And I know that we did good work in sending and doing and managing the expectations of these agencies for 4 years before we decided, hey, let's be an agency. Do you remember what that evening was? I remember that evening.
Oh my God, I must have blocked it out because I remember I knew it was going to happen. And I feel like a lot of people start a lot of people start surrogacy agencies. A lot of former intended parents, former surrogates, just random people, I feel like, are like, you know what? I think would be a really quick, easy cash grab is to start a surrogacy agency. And I wholeheartedly embrace the responsibility and the liability and the trust that people are putting into you to manage this like life altering thing. It's so much responsibility. It's so much weight that I don't understand how people enter into starting an agency so lightly. I remember you said, I think we need to start an agency because we had so many surrogates and we had so many women coming to us that wanted to start a surrogacy journey, and we were running out of really good options on where to send them. And we were overwhelming the agencies that we did trust with the volume that they couldn't support. And so we had to find a better, perfect agency that could help all these women. And I remember hitting that wall where you're like, oh, I think it's us. I don't take that lightly.
We were in Georgia. We were recording one of our podcasts that we had done in person, which was a lot of fun. And I remember us sitting downstairs, you, Kyla, and I. It was an evening, like we probably should have been in bed by that point. But when we're all together, we geek out on surrogacy and talk about all the things and the hopes and the plans that we have for Surrogacy Is. And Kyle was like, no, we're not going to be an agency. And I'm like, hear me out. We need to be an agency, because if we have these expectations, the thing that we did as an advocacy is not only vet the agencies, place and give these women options, and they chose their agencies, but then we were able to go to the agencies and say, hey, the surrogate's feeling a certain way, or keeping them and holding them accountable. And it wasn't hard because our agencies are great. But what I came back to time and time again is you and I talking as like, if we were an agency, we'd be doing this. If we were an agency, our case managers would only be managing 25 cases. If we were an agency, our pre-screening process would look like this. And I finally was like, we need to be an agency, because I think that was our intent. Is I don't want to enter in space. You said that time and time again. I don't want to be in this space unless we have something to offer. And we finally, spending the time that we had learning how these agencies operated, understanding what it looked like to be a good agency, was something that I was really excited about. Like, let's do this. Let's be the agency that we know supports the parents, supports the surrogates in a really profound way where they can walk away and feel good about this process. I think something that we do different than other agencies, we do not require our intended parents to sit on a wait list and have paid half of their deposit and hope that they're going to find a match and be told that maybe they'll find a match within the year or longer. We want to put that expectation is, if you're entering into our process, we're going to find you a great match, and you're not putting money down. You're not waiting. Let's find you a match now and get you on your journey with a surrogate that is pre-screened, because her health and safety for this pregnancy and herself and her family are our top priority through this entire process. Is this going to be a good outcome for this sweet little baby and these intended parents who have waited so long, and this amazing woman who is leaning in and trusting this process in our agency to protect her and support her, and the parents too, you know. It's something that I love talking about because I'm so passionate about being an agency that's making change, and we're doing some good work. I mean, I was looking at this the other day. We have 87 matches currently, and how many deliveries that we've had so far? 5, I think.
5.
That's crazy. We've been doing this a little over a year as an agency. It's insane.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy how, but you know, it's one of those things too. When we started our agency, I didn't want to rush into it. The first thing that I always think of being, you know, a little bit paranoid and super, just anxious person. First thing I did was look into getting insurance, professional liability insurance. I don't want to have an agency and not have professional liability insurance in case something were to go wrong. I want to be able to, you know, make things right for people and to protect. I just think insurance is really important. I'm really, health insurance for the surrogate. When I was a surrogate, my agency, my second journey, didn't purchase health insurance for me until I was like 6 months pregnant. And I like insurance. I like life insurance policies to be really high. I'm like thinking about my own life insurance policy, and my sister works in insurance. And so I'm always thinking about like, what can go wrong? What's the worst case scenario? Yeah. So getting insurance was first, and then consulting with an attorney and coming up with our documents and our agency agreement, and writing and creating our surrogate benefit package.
That was fun.
It was so much fun to sit and spend those hours with you thinking about like, what does a surrogate need during her journey to feel supported? What are some things that happen in other agencies, or that we hear surrogates complaining about midway through the journey? Gosh, I didn't realize that I was going to miss this much time of work, and that I was going to have this or that thing happen. And I wish that I had, housekeeping allowance, or I wish that I had the ability to go and like get a prenatal massage because I'm on my feet working, and in my own pregnancy, I wasn't working at the time. And so there's just things that that surrogates, as they go through the process, and which is why repeat surrogates are often, because they're experienced and proven, they do get a higher compensation, but they also know more specifically what are the things that they're going to need to make their pregnancy feel safe and supported and not like a big drain on their family. And so putting that benefit package together with you, I remember thinking of my own benefit package in my first journey. It was very not thoughtful. Like, I think they had written in that I had to miss 80 hours of work before I could get any lost wages reimbursed. And I just kind of glazed over that and didn't think it was a big deal. And then I was missing so much work and taking so much time off, and my, job was getting pressured, and people had to cover for me. And I'm like not even getting paid, and I'm not getting reimbursed for it. It was really stressful. And so we thought about that when we were creating our own benefit package, and what are the things that happen. And it was really cool to put that together with you. And I'm really proud of it. The benefit package that we have for our surrogates is thoughtful for them. And also it's thoughtful for the intended parents, because that can create a lot of conflict too, when you have a surrogate who feels that maybe she's not being respected. She's being taken advantage of, or she's giving more than and it's costing her more than she expected. And that can cause resentment. And I think having a generous benefit package for a surrogate is so important. And I know a lot of people want to say that surrogates are driving up the cost for intended parents and pricing out intended parents. And I just think if you're going to cut costs on anything, it should not be your surrogate's benefit package. She's doing such an incredible, selfless thing. Try to save money elsewhere, not on your surrogate's benefit package.
Yeah. Find an agency that sees that. I think I know this process is expensive for intended parents. I mean, just having the surrogate, the agency fee, the clinic, insurance. The clinic is substantial portion in that. The attorneys, the insurance, the life insurance, there's so many variables in this process. It's not cheap. But I'll say to parents, the surrogate, you need her to be confident when she's going into this. And that's why so many women will do their research. So they're doing it whether we like it or not, and putting those side by side and seeing which packet is going to benefit my family, where I'm going to feel and walk away and feel confident through that. Is my agency's benefit package saying you have a clothing allowance, but that clothing allowance, you have to submit receipts, and maybe I don't want to have maternity clothes. I have maternity clothes, but I'm going to have a whole different body after I deliver, and I'm going to use my allowance for after delivery. I think for us, when we created our package, was trying to be considerate of that, right? So we have our set amount for the clothing allowance, but it's non-accountable, meaning at this point in their pregnancy, they're going to get this. If they want to put it in their savings for afterwards, so they can go and get a few outfits, pieces that are going to fit their new body after having a pregnancy and delivering this baby, then so be it. But I didn't want to put them in a box, because then there's that resentment that comes after the fact. Like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have thought about that. And here I am and having to submit all of these receipts. I'd rather not do that. And I've shared that with intended parents is the why we have so many surrogates and why they've chosen surrogacy is side by side, they've seen the different agency packages and the different agencies and how they offer the support and the things. They've chosen surrogacy is coming in confident that they've chosen this agency and this package with us, which is going to get them off of a wait list. So instead of paying another agency half of that agency fee and be told that maybe they'll find and be presented a surrogate in a year or longer, they don't have to do that. And so yes, the offset is our benefit package is a little more thoughtfully done, but that's why we're able to get them off of those wait lists and keep them in their journey going to get them to that finish line. There are other ways we can cut costs, but there are some things you just can't cut. Even escrow. I mean, there's so many variables we look at right now. Hot topics in this industry is you don't want to go with the cheapest escrow. You want to go with an escrow who has those liability insurances, who has been around a long time, right? Those are the things that you cannot afford to cut. You just can't. And I think that's what comes down to what we're trying to accomplish is the education component, right? And explaining that to intended parents, explaining that to surrogates. They walk away feeling more confident when they have the why behind it instead of an agency just saying, this is just it, the way it goes. But why? Let's talk about that, So I think that's one thing that I'm so proud of Surrogacy as our podcast, because we get to have these different professionals on and these talking points to talk about fun stuff like this. Why did we start Surrogacy Is? The advocacy side and the agency, but also the topics that are less talked about and why somebody would have their embryos genetically tested or why maybe they wouldn't have their embryos genetically tested. And I think we've had some phenomenal points of views from these doctors who are amazing in sharing that feedback. I mean, I look back at 16 years ago and some of the tools and resources we have now compared to then with even just genetically testing embryos is insane, So I can't imagine what's to come down the line with all of the resources and what surrogacy is going to look like. I hope good, but it takes the agencies doing good work, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was our topics on our list?
So we have misconceptions. The first one is surrogacy is just transactional. Is it just transactional? Absolutely not. Not even a little bit. You might have an intended parent who has their heart guarded, who has gone through a lot, who just lost a baby, and this is like their last hope at trying to have a child. They might be guarded at first and not want to have and build this relationship with the surrogate. But as soon as, you get to those certain milestones in the process, they let that guard down because it's a reality that they're at some point going to have their baby. But I would say most times the parents are coming in with so much hope and like, who is this person considering surrogacy? Why would they consider this? And thank you for considering this. And the surrogates are so eager to just please and be there to see them be whole. So the farthest thing from surrogacy is transactional. It just is a joke, unfortunately, seeing somebody say something like that. So
I think it can be that way, but it's definitely like lots of things can happen, but that's really not common. I don't know surrogates who feel anything other than just like love and adoration for their intended parents and so much pride in what they've been able to do and how they've been able to impact another family. Like I know myself, I have so much gratitude even for my intended parents for trusting me with something so precious. And there were times in the beginning, like when you're getting to know somebody and you're about to do something really profoundly intimate, like carrying their child, giving birth to their child, and they are trusting you with it. It's just, if it's transactional, like I think I don't want to negate anybody's experience. Like, say, I know this kind of came up as a topic when Khloe Kardashian had shared that she felt that it was transactional. I don't want to devalue her experience. Like, if that's how she felt, then that's, that's how she felt and that's what she experienced. I hope that her surrogate didn't feel that way, and I imagine that it wasn't that way for the surrogate. I think expectations have to be managed and communication has to be managed between intended parents and surrogates for you to have a good agency, a good case manager that has empathy for both sides and is able to explain where the intended parents are coming from and where the surrogate is coming from when they, even if they have like a little bit of conflict, or say the conflict is something as minor as, I saw, you see these sometimes intended parents get anxious, and maybe you're friends with your surrogate on Facebook and you saw that she's took this selfie or this picture or whatever, and there was this product in the background or something, and they were like, is she using these cleaning chemicals, and is she like harming my baby? And you don't know, like, how do you broach those conversations in a way that's being respectful and not coming across as being distrustful or being controlling? And so you want the surrogate to be able to receive that and be like, your parents they're curious if, and if you wouldn't mind maybe switching to this other product because maybe it didn't occur to you, but they're more anxious. But you're involving somebody in something that most of the time, when you carry a child for yourself, you get to make all those decisions. You get to control all those things. You get to decide if this is a product you want to use or you don't want to use, or if this is the type of food you want to eat or don't want to eat, or, assuming your nausea allows you to make those kinds of choices that make sense, or it's not just forcing you to eat Arby's every day because it's the only thing that you can stomach. But I think having a case manager and a representative that can help bridge that gap of understanding and can help make it not feel so transactional until you get to that place where you do know each other well and you do trust each other's heart and intentions and you do have that open dialogue with your intended parents and your surrogate. But it doesn't start that way all the time necessarily. Like, it takes time to get to know each other and to shed your assumptions and to shed some of your fears and be able to be open and vulnerable and have those conversations about cat litter or whatever it is,
It's funny. I did a match call the other day, and the intended mom at the very end, I appreciate her vulnerability. She had said, I feel like we're getting married and this is our first date. And it's so true, right? As an agency, we onboard the candidate that we've determined she qualifies, and we're going to do all those pre-screening items. Run her background, psychological screening, home visit, make sure it's medically safe, collect all of her prenatal and her delivery records, make sure she's financially stable, make sure she's got a good support system, make sure she understands what this process is going to look like with regards to traveling for medical and legal and the embryo transfer. Like, we spend, 2 to 3 months with these women, really getting to know them and having them put together a thoughtful profile. And for the parents, we have them fill out a very similar profile, but they're reading this profile and they're like, okay, I'm getting to know this person. And if they decide this is a good fit, and if the clinic has reviewed and approved their records, we schedule a match call. And this is the first time they're all talking. And that can feel very vulnerable and scary when you're asking and talking about very serious topics of matching criteria, termination. There are those topics that are necessary. Like, do you want to be in the delivery room? For these parents, they haven't even thought about that yet, right? A lot of times. And so we're asking these conversations, and we might not know the answer. A lot of times they don't, the surrogate and the parents. And that vulnerability of trusting this other human and allowing that relationship to happen organically is hard, because you have the surrogate who's usually very excited and the parent who maybe has come with some sadness and being told like this is their only route, whether they've tried adoption, have had infertility themselves, and entering into this process of surrogacy. It's like they have to trust this other human. And a lot of times parents, they come and they'll say stuff like, well, how do I know she's not going to keep my baby? And I will remind them and I'll let them know, if she was to want another child, she could go do that, right? She's here because she wants to help you be parents, and she's done with the sleepless nights and the diaper changing. And so it's that trust that has to happen. And it can be, I guess, we have seen it be transactional, but I think that comes down to the agency doing a good job of matching and having those hard conversations with an intended parent and the surrogate. What are your expectations for this journey? What do you want from this? Maybe they're from, my second couple was Moscow, Russia, where surrogacy is illegal, and you are made to feel like something's wrong with you as an intended parent if you can't have a child on your own. Well, sorry, you're not supposed to have kids. So she came to the United States to have a child, and I remember her sharing, like, I have so much admiration for you, and you are an amazing human for considering surrogacy, but I don't plan on telling my child that it's through surrogacy because it's illegal there, and there will be so much shame from my family. And that's sad, so you have to stop and realize there's so many different variables that might take that road of being just transactional, and it will look different for everybody. So it's like communicating and making sure you have a good agency and you're sharing what you need from this.
Mm-hmm. And that's okay. First, that, if what you're looking for as a surrogate or as an intended parent, like, there are those surrogates that come into this and they say, I want to do this for somebody. I don't have any expectations of the type of parent that I want to help. I just want to help somebody. I don't need them to be my best friend. I don't need to get to know them. I will carry their baby. I'll take good care of it, and I'll hand it over, and I'll move on with my life and say, pat on the back, I did this, good job, and move on. But I also have a really busy life, and I have kids, and they're in sports, and I have a full-time job, and I have all these things. I don't really necessarily have time to bring this person into my life, but I can do this and help them. And those women exist and want to do surrogacy too, and they don't necessarily want to build a big close bond with their intended parents. Sometimes it happens whether you like it or not, because it is a really emotional process. You do build a bond with your intended parents, whether you intended to or not, in most of the time that I've seen. But you could enter into this thinking that you don't want to do that, and that's okay, as long as you match with intended parents who feel the same way. And there are intended parents who say, I didn't want to do surrogacy. I want to be a parent. This is my last resort. I don't want to tell, I don't want to invite you to meet my family, and I want to have a baby, and then I want to move on with my life as a parent with my new family and leave this infertility and struggle and all of these things behind me and start with that. And they can match with a surrogate who's like, you know what, I'm here for that. I'm here to help you. We'll do this together, and then we'll go our separate ways, and we can all be happy, with the outcome. And if that type of transactional relationship exists, that's not necessarily a negative or bad thing. It's okay. It's not typically the case, but I think a lot of people assume that more often than not, surrogacy is transactional. And I think the opposite is true. Mm-hmm. It's very rarely that way. In my experience, from what I've seen, it's almost always, no matter how you intended things to go, even if you don't have a close relationship with your intended parents afterwards and you guys don't stay in touch. Like for me, with the two families that I've cared for, one lives in Australia, and we communicate on birthdays and holidays and things, and we interact on Facebook, but we don't have time to be connected in the way that maybe we even all would love, but it's not something that I feel is lacking or missing. And I know, I have this undying love and respect for my intended parents and for those babies. And I'm so proud of them. And I love seeing them thrive. And I love seeing them be a family. And I take so much pride in knowing that I was a part of that. But I don't need to be a part of their day-to-day family life. It's not my place. Yeah. I don't need that.
I think that's something that I would love for any parent or surrogate who is deciding what agency they want to work with. It's even telling, if you have the parent profile that the agency's asking you these questions, are they even asking those type of questions? Same for the surrogate profile. What was your intention? Why did you want to be a surrogate? What kind of relationship do you want during the journey? What do you want after? And maybe you don't know the answer to that. But even just having an agency ask those questions of the parent and the surrogate is really telling of what kind of agency that they are and how they want to match and make sure it's a good match. Because I know you've worked for an agency where that's not always the case. You have this really excited person who's coming in saying, I want to be a surrogate. And really, they're matching with intended parents potentially who they might not even ever see, and they'll need a translator to talk to, and then baby's going to be picked up at the very end, and that's it, you know? And so I think for the parents, it's necessary to lean into that, and it's telling. It really is. If you have an agency who are asking those questions in the profile, it means that they want to know what you're looking for, what's important to you in that matching process. So for any of our parents or surrogates who are looking at this and like they're narrowing down that agency, when you get that profile and you see those questions and you're filling out that, and if those are missing from that, those are the moments you run.
And it is different for everyone, and it can change. But I think, yeah, even raising the questions is important, because then you can start turning it over in your mind and you can start thinking about it and you can start imagining, what do I need? And sometimes you don't know. And as you go through your pre-screening, as you go through your, like a lot of times surrogates will put on their profile, you know, when you ask them, what types of intended parents do you want to help? What are you looking for? And they'll say, I'm open to everyone. Mm-hmm. And then you'll present a profile and they'll be like, well, but not them. You're like, well, why? Well, actually, I kind of imagined it would be a first, you know, it would be their first baby. And this is a couple that maybe had children in a previous marriage and now they want to have children together and they can't. And I just imagine really helping a first, and they don't know that until they see it. Yeah. So sometimes, you know, you just have to start kind of looking and imagining different scenarios. And I think a lot of times people don't want to limit their options by saying specifically what they're looking for, because they don't want to rule anyone out that might be wonderful. But sometimes we just don't know until we start looking, and then we're like, okay, I can imagine myself doing this and feeling good about it. And sometimes you can't. And sometimes you don't know what it is. You can't put your finger on it. It's just a little gut feeling or a small connection in a profile, like we love the same football team, or just silly little things like
they love animals like me.
Yeah. They're obsessed with dogs like I am. So I think matching is obviously super important. If you want something not to feel transactional, you have to consider those things. And if that's really important to you, say that. Yeah. Don't be afraid to say that. If there's something that's important to you that you want out of your journey, speak up. Mm-hmm. I think is the most important
empowering
advice I have for surrogates and parents.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Surrogates are only in it for the money.
Well, first of all, I've said this before, and I still feel the same way. There is not an amount of money in the world that is worth it to put yourself as a fertile person who's able to have children on your own, to put yourself through IVF medications, to put yourself through the struggle of anticipation and hope and worry and pressure that maybe your parents aren't putting on you, but you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself because you really want to do this for them. You really want it to be successful. You want it to work, and you feel the weight of that on yourself as a surrogate. Maybe you might go through a failed transfer and have to do multiple rounds of IVF. Maybe you might have a miscarriage and you've never had one before, and now you're having a miscarriage with somebody else's baby, and you're experiencing that physically and emotionally, that loss. You are going to be pregnant. You're going to have morning sickness, maybe, if that's something that you struggle with. I think most of us do. I always did. The weight gain, the cramps, the heartburn, the changing body, the mood swings, the limitations on foods that you can't eat, the travel that you can't do, the family member that dies in another state unexpectedly and you are not able to travel and attend their funeral. the maybe loss of opportunity to promote in your job at work. Like there's so much sacrifice before you even birth the baby, and then recovering from that physically, going through the postpartum hormonal changes, the breast milk coming in, pumping or suppressing, the hair loss, the weight gain. There's so much that there's really no amount of money that's worth it to do all of that. So to say that surrogates are doing it just for the money, like there's lots of other ways that you could make money that would be easier and would take less from you than being a surrogate. And if you were not getting the satisfaction of doing something because you are a giver, because you are a person who wants to help others, because you know what it is to love a child and you know what it is to yearn for that and you want to help somebody else have that. Like if it wasn't for that piece, that drive, people wouldn't do surrogacy. Yeah. And for most people, because surrogates are so rare, there are not a lot of us. We are a very rare breed that will sign up and do something like this. And most of us will sign up and do it multiple times if we physically can. Most people, there's no amount of money in the world that you could pay them. If you paid them $5 million, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not just for the money. That's my 11 cents on that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think, yes, surrogacy for me elevated my family and was able to get me to a different place of paying off some of my student debt that I'm not using a degree on. You know, I'm putting some money away for my kids. I think that it did. Like surrogacy was certainly something that helped me elevate.
100%.
And you have to be financially stable to do surrogacy. So it's not like you have to have demonstrated that you're not in need of this financial opportunity to be able to do that. But for so many people who consider surrogacy, women consider surrogacy for journey number 2, 3, 4, if they're allowed, not because of the financial component, but really because I could not imagine not being a mom and seeing these intended parents hold their baby on delivery day and knowing that they had gone through to get to that place and the impact that was going to have, a ripple effect, as you say, there's nothing that describes that. And at the end of the day, and when I look at my life and I'm an old woman, hopefully I get to be an old woman, I can say I am proud to be a mom and that I know I did well. But I was also able to help somebody in this way with surrogacy. And it's something that I get to, I walked away thanking my intended parents. And they're looking at me like, are you crazy? You just did this big thing and you're saying thank you because I fulfilled something in me. So the shots, I was like, I could do that. The morning sickness, yeah, that's bearable. All of those things are, it's like childbirth, right? I mean, nobody wants to go through childbirth, but why do we keep having babies? Because we get to see their giggles. We get to see them walk for the first time. I know those moments, like it's a short period of time and the outcome is huge in the joy that it brings. And so for surrogacy, for me, and why I can say honestly, in the 16 years I've been doing this, I have yet to meet somebody who has been a surrogate once and said, well, that was great. I won't be doing that again. If they physically are allowed, meaning they haven't had something go wrong in their pregnancy, they will be a surrogate again. And I have so many times the surrogates come to me and they're like, you were right. I'm like, I know, because it's bigger than us. It's so much bigger than us. And it is profoundly changing in that ripple effect of the grandmas who get to be grandmas and the aunt who seeing her sister struggle with fertility and gets to see this sweet baby and know how many people desired for this child to be here is huge. It's huge. So no, there is no amount of money that make surrogacy and the women who consider it, but all of the other things, those are extras. It's a bonus, you know?
Yeah. And I think I remember too, like a big part of my struggle when I did finally finish pre-screening and I was ready to match, I had to read these profiles of all of these parents and I wanted to help them all. Like I was like, I only have this one freaking uterus. Like I got to pick one person to help or one couple. Like, that means I'm saying no to all of these other people who are so, like, they wrote these beautiful letters and these beautiful profiles and they shared their dreams of like, this is what I want to do when I have my baby, when my baby's here, this is the life I'm going to give them. If you'll please help me. And you have to say no to all except for one. Then you're like, I want to help more people. I think that's the hard thing too. And I'm so grateful that I'm not in the position that you are, where you're speaking to intended parents all the time, because when you hear their stories, you want to help them. Yeah. Like, I would probably get sucked into doing a fourth journey and a fourth C-section if I was talking to intended parents, because I would just want to get them to that finish line. I want to see them be parents and hold their baby. And I want them to have that, because I know that the struggle, even to get to the point where you're like, okay, having a surrogate is my only path forward. This is my last chance. And then if this doesn't work out, then I'm going to give up and I can't be a parent and I'll just let that go. And I don't want anybody to have to let that go, because there's such a need for people to grow up in a world where they're loved and they're wanted and their parents are ready to support them and ready to give them everything that they need. And it just feels so unfair that there are parents that have all those things and that they're not the ones that have an easy time having their babies, and that they have to struggle. It's just like the universe is not fair in that way. And I like balancing the scales for that, you know, like being part of making something happen and setting something right, I think is just such a validating feeling.
And how cool is it that we get to have our kids, the next generation, teaching them what love looks like. So Tori's 18 now and Tessa's 16, and they got to see mom be a surrogate twice. And that was pretty cool, because even to today, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and sometimes they probably get annoyed with how much I talk about surrogacy. But they tell people, and they're so proud, like, my mom helps families have babies. You know, that's huge, that love can be shown in that way, and that we have the ability to show others who maybe have their own misconceptions and thoughts about surrogacy. And then I had a next door neighbor, an older lady, very, very conservative, had said, oh, you were a surrogate? Because I had another friend, neighbor, who had said she was a surrogate and she owns a surrogacy agency. She was so proud. And this woman's like, how could you do that? How could you give this baby up? And I go, it wasn't my baby. I mean, like, I was done having kids. And I looked at her and I was quiet and I said, do you have kids? She goes, yeah, I've got a daughter. And I go, does your daughter have kids? Are you a grandma? And I could see in her face, she was like, no, they've been struggling. And I said, I did surrogacy, and I did it, and I signed up for this thing because I wanted my intended parents to have a baby, but I wanted that grandma, like you, to be a grandma. And she just started crying. And I was, you know, I was defensive a little bit at first, but like, no, it wasn't hard. This wasn't my baby. Like, I knew this is gestational surrogacy. I'm the oven cooking the bun, but this is not my baby. And to know the impact I was having on this other family is huge. And so I get to every day to talk about these misconceptions that people have. And it's until they meet a real unicorn that I get to share that, and we get to share that and fix those misconceptions. And maybe she'll go to her daughter and be like, hey, I met a real life surrogate. Have you considered that? Because she did. She shared that they had been struggling and they did IVF and miscarriage after miscarriage. And it's leaning into these hard topics that nobody wants to talk about, and trying to put some real actual expectations of like, what does this look like and how does this actually work? And who are these people that consider surrogacy? Unicorns? Yes. Maybe. So.
What's the next one?
Let's see here. Surrogates have no rights over the baby. Misconception. Surrogates have no legal or emotional rights once the baby is born.
Well, I mean, that's true.
Yeah. Because it's not their baby.
Yeah. Why would they have legal rights over a baby that wasn't theirs?
Yeah. I think, though, for surrogates who are like wondering, how does this process work, right? So during the journey, it's necessary for your agency to match you with a good match. It kind of goes back to that original question of making sure you're matched appropriately, and that if you are an intended parent who wants all rights to termination, because if you were placed in a situation where there was a severe abnormality and you were told this child wasn't going to live after in quality of life, like these intended parents in most cases want that decision. And that question was posed to me when I was a surrogate is, am I as a surrogate comfortable leaving the right to termination to the intended parents? And that kind of threw me for a loop at first, because as a surrogate, I'm like thinking we're bringing a baby into this world. But the reality is although very rare, those situations potentially could pose a conversation that needs to be had if that were to come up. And the person that I had done my screening with when I first did my journey had said, if you were in that position, would you want somebody else making that decision for you? And I was like, no, like if it was my child, I would want to make that decision. So surrogacy is like that, basically, that if you are carrying this child, knowing that you're a gestational carrier, during the pregnancy, it's important to match with somebody that you align with and that your decisions are in alignment of what each other's wants. But afterwards, this baby is biologically the intended parent. So they're going to have full custody of this child because it's their child. I don't come into that one very often, though. I think most women know that this is their
Yeah,
baby.
I think a lot of times when or early on, talking to people who are really green about surrogacy, and they're like, okay, so if I was going to do this, say hypothetically I was going to be a surrogate, I'm not, but if I was, when they're still really guarded, they're like, how do I make sure, because it feels like a big responsibility, because you're bringing a child into the world and you feel the weight of that responsibility of, how do I know that these are going to be good parents, whatever that means to you. It's different for everyone. And so there's a lot of times where a surrogate will want to feel confident that the baby's going to grow up and have a good, happy life. And they're like, well, I did have one time a surrogate was like, I really want to make sure that I match with intended parents who are going to put their child in private school. Like, why?
Yeah.
It's not your baby, like I want to make sure that, their child is going to drink organic milk and is going to go to private school and is going to, learn about this, learn 5 languages or whatever. Like you can't, that's overstepping at that point, you're overstepping.
That's like the mother-in-law coming in saying, you should raise your child this way. No, I'm the mom.
Yeah, no, you're the surrogate. You're going to have them, then they're going to make all their parenting decisions that they want to make. And they don't maybe know how or what they're going to do yet, but they're going to make those decisions just like you did for your children. Yeah. But you don't get to make those decisions for them because you carried their child. So I think some people that have a mindset like that maybe wouldn't be good surrogates. And maybe if they're not able to let go of that, and that's okay. Like not everybody can do this. It's not for everyone. I think, there's definitely times where you have surrogates that want to control things. I think that's so much more rare though than
it is definitely.
Like I've only heard that maybe 1 or 2 times, something like that with a surrogate. That's like, I need to make sure that the parents are X religion, or that they're going to put the child in private school, or whatever it is. I think those were the 2 that I've heard. Like I want to make sure that they're going to raise the child in this religion the way I raise my children. Like that's really not. That's really. I think you can probably find a match that shares your same religion, and you can probably do that. But at a certain point, like, definitely, are they going to put the kid in private school? It's just like, are you going to choose which private school? Are you going to want to look at the private schools that they're considering and make sure that you approve of the one that they select? Like, what do you? I don't know.
I remember one time I had a surrogate who had said, I really want them to circumcise the baby if it's a boy. And I go, yeah, that's not something that you get the choice in, you know. I don't even remember. I think it just comes down to education, right? And explaining. And so often, most people know that this is gestational surrogacy and that this is biologically not yours, and they're transferring this sweet little embryo into your uterus. You're the oven cooking the bun, as we all say in the industry. But I think that there, for some maybe who have just started out and they're researching and they're like, they think this is more of adoption, where they've found a family and they're going to create, you know, have and create this pregnancy, and then that baby will go there. I think that's and I know that there is traditional surrogacy. It's not practiced as often. I don't think there's a lot of agencies out there that do, but I just think gestational surrogacy is the more commonly known route that people take. So it's that stepping stone that we can explain to a surrogate, but most times they see and they know that. You know, it's the same thing for an intended parent. It's like, how do I know they're not going to keep my baby? And I go, she's done having her own family.
I have heard some surrogate too, like a potential surrogate, not somebody that we moved forward with, but I've heard surrogates or potential surrogates say, well, what if it's twins? Can I keep one? Like, no, it's not your baby. It's not a spare. It's not a spare baby. Like, it's just an extra. Well, if you're not gonna eat that, I'll finish it. Like, it's not. No, you cannot keep one. You cannot keep any of them. You cannot be a surrogate. Stop it.
And that, I think that's why for parents, it's important to find an agency that is doing all those pre-screening items, because you're right. Not every person who decides they want to be a surrogate qualify or a good fit for this process. It's making sure that they've got a good support system, they're financially stable, that they're psychologically evaluated, and that they understand this process of surrogacy. Those things are necessary. Some agencies do those things, but not all of them. And it's really just important to lean in and ask those questions, you know.
Yeah, there are those agencies that will take anyone with a heartbeat and push her through and hide things in her medical records.
You've got
and
a uterus,
do things that make it
sold.
not safe for her.
No.
And not consider her mental health and how she would be impacted. I mean, if you're a person, and we get comments like this on Facebook all the time, like, I don't care. I know it's not my baby. It doesn't matter if it's not genetically related to me. If I carry that baby for 9 months, I'm bonded with it and I'm attached to it, and I would never be able to let that baby go. Then absolutely you are not psychologically a right fit for surrogacy. Yeah. And it would be detrimental to your mental health for you to proceed with something like this, if that's how you feel. Yeah. I can say that I think you're wrong, but it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you think. Mm-hmm. Because you would be the one who would be going to the... So you're right. You absolutely shouldn't be a surrogate, because if that's how you would feel, then it wouldn't be safe for you.
Yeah. It's not for everybody.
It's not.
Okay, next one. Surrogacy is only for the wealthy. I think you have to be financially stable to qualify, to be a parent, because it is so... It's a big thing, and it's not a small financial. I've seen some parents who will put a second, mortgage on their home. I've seen there are few, but there are grants and scholarships that you can get. Some insurances now are offering it, I think, which is beautiful, but very few that are. So to say that surrogacy is just for the wealthy is in my opinion, it's a misconception. However, surrogacy is not cheap. And it's really understanding and outweighing and understanding, what does this look like? You're gonna need to find a good agency. You need to know that they're vetting that surrogate candidate. You're compensating the surrogate. You're gonna need an attorney, 2 attorneys, one representing the parents and the surrogate. The medical aspect of it, the medical screening and the embryo transfer. And we hope that it happens and works on the first try. But I would say a large portion of the parents' financial component will be the medical side of things. And then you have the smaller component of everything else. But it is not a little thing. And I've seen many just regular Joes. Mom is a teacher and dad is, has a good job, who maybe have family that have given to them so that they can have a child. But to say that it's just for the rich is a misconception, because there are just regular parents trying to grow their family and figuring out what does this look like, because it isn't cheap. It is an expensive process. But a lot of parents who come to this, it's our last resort, right? This is their last hope at being able to grow their family. So,
yeah, and I think it's important to consider that intended parents have spent a lot of money, a lot of times even on their own attempts at IVF, before they come to the place of deciding, okay, I have this many embryos left. I want to give them the best chance. I'm going to need to have somebody else carry these embryos for me. And you've already invested a lot into the process, even to get to that point. But there are lots of different creative ways that people finance their surrogacy journey. I think for surrogates, it's important to understand that your intended parents are not bottomless pits of money, that you can just ask for so much. I have seen surrogates that I think maybe ask for, I hate to say that because it sounds really shitty to say, but I do it's like such a fine line where you see surrogates asking for something or spending on something and they're not considering like how much overall money an intended parent has invested. Like I've seen or I've heard surrogates say, well, I want to stay at the Plaza Hotel or whatever when I go, because if I'm traveling, I've never been to, here, and I'm going to stay in this really fancy hotel. I mean, we don't want to put them in a Best Western. You want to be in a nice hotel that's safe and that's clean and that has, all the things that you need, the amenities. But you also want to be considerate of, this is just another cost on top of so many costs for your intended parents that we're not going to try to spend everything. But I don't know. It's such a hard thing to talk about, the financial aspect of it and being respectful of both sides. It's why complex.
I lean in and say don't go independently. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I say don't go independently, but to add an additional layer between the parent and the surrogate, talking about the financial aspect of this, because it is such a big thing, I think it's necessary to have the agency there, because the parent might not feel comfortable to ask or understand something, and it's good that they can lean on their agency and say, well, what about this? And what did you guys do for this? And same thing for the surrogate. If the surrogate has a big ask that's not common and normal, those are things that we would lean in and explain why that's not going to happen. Or we're looking at, if this is really important to her, then that's going to be a matching criteria, right? Because we're never going to say no, that she can't. If this is something that's really important to her and her benefit package, it's really understanding that and then making sure we match her with the right match, but also that education component that goes into it as an agency to balance that, to make sure that we're being thoughtfully guiding this journey through that process. So it's asking the questions, I think that's the thing that, and a lot of intended parents don't know. They're like, well, what are these darn agencies even good for? And there are so many things that could potentially go wrong. And yes, it is another expense that the agencies have to figure out, of having an agency manage the journey and finding a surrogate that's qualified. But I think it's necessary, because then you at least have an agency who's going to guide and make sure the surrogate has life insurance in place, and that your insurance is surrogacy friendly, and that the judgment is being drafted, and that it gets sent over to the hospital when that time comes. Like, there's so many variables in this process. Our journey coordinators only manage 25 cases. And to me, that still kind of feels like a lot. But I know most agencies hold 45, 50, 60 cases that they're managing and juggling these journeys. There are so many variables in this process as a journey coordinator. It takes a special person to be able to manage a journey, because there are so many aspects and facets that you have to manage from start to finish. So
And holding space for all of the emotional roller coasters that your parents and your surrogates are going through, and you're going to be their support person for that, and being a sounding board for them, and being confident in delivering hard news sometimes, and in helping people work through those feelings and helping them get access to the resources to support them when maybe it's too much for the journey coordinator alone.
Yeah. I have, so Kyle's the king of analogies.
Can you move your microphone a little bit closer to you? I'm having trouble hearing you.
How about now?
That's better, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Kyle is the king of analogies, and I've picked up his beautiful.
That's funny because I disagree.
Oh, well, that's because you're his wife, and his art form. So maybe my analogies are going to get old with you too. But when I am onboarding intended parents, we often get like, what is why would a parent choose to use an agency versus going independently? Like, what are you guys good for? And it's a fair question because there's a lot of agencies that I also ask that same question. But for us, the best way that I can explain what we as an agency are doing for both parties is we're kind of like the seatbelt, and you're in a car and you're driving and you're taking this beautiful, very windy road. We want to know as the agency that we have got you. And as the agency, our job is to be that seatbelt in this car, driving this journey that you're going to take. And we can't tell you that it's going to be perfect and your transfer on the first try is going to take, and that there isn't going to be a hiccup. Hiccups happen and they're unavoidable, unfortunately. But if you have an agency who's thoughtfully doing it and taking care of you and giving you those tools, and that the why behind some of these steps in the process, and making sure all those steps are being done, and being there to support both of that emotional aspect of the parent and the surrogate's relationship, that's what's most important in this process. So having a good seatbelt that works when you have that bump is necessary. And that's what the agency is supposed to do, is be that security to see you get to the finish line. And it might not be a straight shot. It might be a little curvy road with some bumps. But the goal, if you can do it and find a good agency, is that they're supposed to guide you and make sure you get to that finish line, that you're holding that sweet baby. So it's huge. It's so big. And
for most surrogates and most intended parents, they're entering into this really complex journey for maybe the one time in their life that they're going to do it. And they don't know what all the possible things are that are going to happen. But if you have a good agency with a lot of experience, they will have encountered all of the things that you are going to encounter, and they'll be prepared and they'll know what to do so that you're not panicking. It's like, let me try a Kyle analogy. So like when we first started, he was learning how to drive the boat. We signed up for the boat club.
Oh God, he's going to love this one.
It was so like scary to be out there. Like when the water would get choppy, like, and the boat gets bouncy, you're like, is this normal? Is this like, I don't know, because I've never done it. So I don't know if this is normal, if it's supposed to do this. Is it supposed to make that sound? How do I drop the anchor? And how do I get, like make sure that the boat doesn't float away? And that there's so many things that you don't know when it's your first time trying to do something. But when you go out on the boat with somebody who grew up on boats and has been on a boat their whole life, that confidence that they have to be like, oh yeah, this is what happens when it's windy, or this is what happens when there's this tidal shift or whatever. And I know this river because I've navigated down it so many times, and I know there's a sandbar here. So we're going to dodge that part and we're going to go around this way so that we don't hit that sandbar. And this is a good spot where we want to anchor, and we want to, somebody who's been through lots of journeys with lots of different outcomes and lots of different surrogates and different intended parents is able to approach those bumps with confidence and isn't trying to wing it and figure it out on their first go round. And as an intended parent and a surrogate, you want an expert that's guiding you on this, because you don't want your boat to capsize and you don't want to get stuck on that sandbar. And it can ultimately, it's even like with construction, when you have a good general contractor and they're choosing like subcontractors, like who's going to do the drywall. I know a good tile guy. I have a good, AC guy. Don't use this electrician. That electrician's garbage. Like, do not use that guy. You will regret it. And that's what our agency does. Is we're the general contractor, and we help you put together the team that's going to help you get to the finish line. And if you don't have a general contractor, which is what you see, like I watch a lot of house flipping shows where people are trying to like flip a home and they don't have a GC, which is a general contractor in home construction, not a gestational carrier. And they're trying to just like wing it. And like, well, I found these guys at Home Depot that they said they could do tile. And then I found these cheapest guys on Craigslist and they said that they can lay the flooring. And then you spend money and you lay the flooring and it's bad. And all that product is wasted. And then now you have to go and you have to hire a general contractor to fix the mess that you made because you tried to save money by not hiring a general contractor. You could really end up costing yourself a lot more. So I think having a good agency is just one of those things where, as if it's not emotionally stressful enough, don't put that burden on yourself and on your surrogate of trying to figure out how to do all these things and put all these components together for your first time and probably your only time ever doing this. You don't want to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Let people who know what they're doing and have done it, let them do it. Yeah. And try to relax as much as you can, because it's going to be hard enough. It's going to be hard enough. There's going to be so many challenges. Hopefully everything goes off without a hitch, but chances are there will be bumps, and let yourself have room to feel your feelings and have your fears and go through that and build your relationship with your surrogate and build your relationship with your intended parents and not have to talk to them about money and insurance and this bill and, can you reimburse me for these prenatal vitamins? Or, you don't want your surrogate to be asking you all these things about money, because then it's going to sour the relationship of what she's even doing for you. Or maybe she's not going to ask you. She's going to be like, I feel weird asking, you know what? I'm just going to pay for my own stuff and travel. And then the surrogate's out something, even when she's doing something so generous. And it's not even because the intended parents wouldn't have covered it. They would have, but maybe she was too shy to bring it to them because it's too hard to broach the topic. And so that's what the agency is there for, to manage all those awkward things too. Yeah. Like from little to big, there's so many things that your agency is doing for you that you don't even know, and you'll never know. Mm-hmm. We'll even be the punching bag for you. Yeah. You want to be mad. Maybe you should be mad at your parents. Maybe you should be mad at your surrogate, but we'll be the fall guy. Like we will do that because we want your relationship to be preserved and to be happy. And
Kyle would be so proud of you right now. That was a beautiful analogy.
It was two analogies.
I know. I love that. No, it's true. It really is. And it's necessary. So, and not all agencies look alike. I have the other analogy that always gets the intended parents is it's like having a wedding planner that really knows its stuff. And you could have a wedding planner and stuff will still mess up, but it's making sure you've found and narrowed down the right person that's going to be managing that very, very special day and making sure that the time of cutting cake is not missed and that the pictures are being taken and that the music changes when you're walking down the aisle. I mean, I've been to awkward weddings. I think we all have. And making sure that this very special moment gets completed and executed in a way that's going to be a good outcome for everybody, where you get to just enjoy it, that relationship as much as possible with the surrogate, and let your agency be that punching bag. Because I do know you're still going to have those feelings and those fears. So it's making sure you have an agency that's going to have your back and represent you. So
yeah, and we have a thick skin too, so we can take that too. I think a lot of the work of an agency is really just holding space for all of the big feelings that happen, and understanding and not taking things personally when intended parents get mad or surrogates get upset about something, and then you have to help them understand why their parents asking them this, or navigating those things when the surrogate's like, I am really feeling like I need to take off work early. I'm not going to make it to my due date before I need to rest. I'm on my feet all the time at work, and I need to go on leave maybe three or 4 weeks earlier than I anticipated. And now the intended parents are juggling that unexpected cost of more lost wages that they're having to reimburse. And so those are things that's like, that sucks. That sucks for the intended parents that they have this unexpected cost. It sucks for the surrogate that she's feeling like she should ignore what she needs because she wants to accommodate the intended parents and their expenses. Like everybody's feelings are valid, and holding space for people to vent that and feel those feelings and say whatever it is. And maybe they're going to say something. Maybe the intended parents are going to say something about the surrogate being inconsiderate or being selfish or being greedy. And maybe they need to say that, and then they process it. And then later they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I ever said that about her. Obviously she's not selfish or greedy, and she's doing the most miraculous, selfless thing for me. And I was feeling that. But aren't you glad that you said it to us and not to her, you know? Yeah. That's the kind, and that's the kind of thing where that's what we're here for, to like let you feel those feelings. And sometimes you feel those feelings and then you can flush and move on, and you don't have to do any damage to your relationship. Yeah, I think.
Yep. Okay, another one. Intended parents have complete control over the surrogate.
Yep. They keep her in their basement and she's not allowed to leave, and they feed her through a tray under the door.
Oh, that's very considerate of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's surrogacy.
I will say, parents come to this with so much fear, and this is the one thing I've taken away from all of this really more recently in talking with parents, is they want so bad to carry their own baby and to use a certain cleaning product or not drink a certain type of milk or eat. I mean, there's so many things that come into this as that has to be trust for the intended parents. And so you might come across an intended parent who has lost all hope, who has gone through a lot of loss, miscarriage, and maybe even losing a baby. You know, I think that we don't know what the story was prior to that parent coming to this place of realizing surrogacy is their last resort. But usually it is their last resort. And this is their last little piece where they can control a little bit of what they want to see happen in this experience. And it's not coming from a place of wanting to control this other human being, but it's the outcome of their baby. They want that pregnancy to be as the best that they can. So you might get a parent who says, I want you to eat organically because if I was doing this, I would have eaten organically. But coming with that request is the expectation the parents are financially responsible for that additional cost surrounding eating organically and buying meat that we know is so stinking expensive right now. There might be those little wonky requests that the parent has, but it's the agency's job, here we go again, the agency's job is to make sure that we've asked those questions of the parent and the surrogate and that we're thoughtfully matching so that we find a surrogate who understands what that parent is looking for, and it's going to be part of that contract. So there are going to be expectations and requests potentially, and maybe not. The parents are like, you know what, you've done this before. I have no idea. Thank you for doing this, you know, but you might also get those intended parents who have a few expectations of how they want that pregnancy to look. And it's something that you will build into your guys' contract. So you aren't going to be totally blinded by this. In most cases, you have those conversations, very hard conversations, to make sure that everybody's in alignment and you're both signing this contract so that you guys know what that expectation is. You're going to see in the contract, it's going to tell you no drinking. Sorry, ladies, 9 months of pregnancy, no drinking, smoking. Those are the typical normal things that we want for a healthy pregnancy. But outside of that, you know, they might have a little request here and there, but really those are things you're going to be made aware of. And if they have a special request, those are accommodations that the parents are going to do. They're not going to expect you to then start doing that. And now your grocery bill's, you know, $500 more than it normally would be. So.
And if you were a surrogate, if you were a person who gets your nails done every 2 weeks and gets your hair done every 4 to 6 weeks, and that's part of your lifestyle and that's what you've always done, and you did it through your own pregnancies and you had no issues, you're not going to be a good match for a parent who doesn't want their surrogate to do their nails or do their hair. They don't want you to dye your hair during pregnancy. There are parents who want, their surrogate to avoid those types of things. No nail polish, no nail salons, no getting your hair dyed. Then you should, be able to find a match with a surrogate who is like, I never get my nails done. I don't have time for that. And I'm not interested. I don't. So you find that match and you talk about those things early on. But what you don't do is match an intended parent or a surrogate because things look good on paper, or I was excited about your profile, and now you're matched, and now she's pregnant, and now they spring on you. Actually, I don't want you to get your nails or hair done.
They can't
anymore.
do that.
You're like, well, yeah, it's that wasn't something that you agreed upon in matching. So you have to make sure that you're having those conversations early, as early as possible, and making sure that you even know what your expectations are. Because maybe a parent didn't think of that. I don't know. Or maybe they watch a documentary or something that spooks them, and then they wish that they had done it. I don't know. It is a lot of control for intended parents to give up, to trust somebody to carry their baby. I think for the most part, if a surrogate understands why a parent is making a request, she will do everything she can to accommodate that, because we do want our intended parents to feel secure, and we want them to be involved in the pregnancy, and we want them to be part of it. And if that's what they would do when they were carrying, and it's not too much of a hardship, I think most surrogates are understanding and accommodating. But nobody ever has control over another person's life. The intended parents don't own you because you're pregnant with their baby. So I think if that's a fear that people have when they're entering into surrogacy, I think it's good to understand that you do still have autonomy over your own body, of course.
A misconception, some surrogates, I've had this conversation of well, what if at the very end I am diagnosed with preeclampsia and I'm 30 weeks and it is necessary to induce and start labor, and it's not ready for that sweet baby. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, and I always tell this to the intended parents, I mean, not the parents, but the surrogate, is it's sad if that were to ever happen, but priority for everybody involved is that your well-being and safety comes first. So if an early delivery has to happen, as much as nobody wants that, it's still something that will happen. So we actually ask surrogates, if in a situation that your life was at risk, are you willing to deliver early if this is being told by the doctor that this needs to happen? We need to know that surrogate is willing to say yes, because not anybody, not the agency, not the intended parents, nobody wants this to come at the risk of you losing your life. So I think that's the other reality, as a surrogate who's considering this wants to know that priority isn't, well, let's just keep her pregnant as long as possible. Absolutely not. If she is in jeopardy and she's at risk and there's a harm of her not making it, it's not something that anybody wants to take a chance on. So I think a lot of women go into this going, okay, of course we want a healthy, uncomplicated pregnancy. That's what everybody is hoping for. And the reality is it is unlikely, right? Because we have done all that necessary vetting and we're only approving somebody who really, truly qualifies medically. But things happen and every pregnancy is different. So it's really necessary to still have those conversations.
Yeah. Gosh, it's not something that you ever want to think about, but it is so important that I think if you're having an independent match, nobody might be talking to you about these things or asking you these questions, and you could find yourself in that situation and not having thought about it or what to do. And it's so scary if you didn't have somebody to lean on. I'm grateful that we're able to offer the service that we are to help people on their journeys. And I'm grateful that you are the best general contractor of putting together these teams. And I'm just so grateful for you, and the love and heart that you pour into all of these cases to help in all of our team, all of our journey coordinators, all of our intake coordinators, down to our marketing team. Everybody is invested in seeing these journeys come to fruition, and just loves our surrogates, loves our intended parents, loves seeing these babies be born, and takes so much pride in what we do. And we're just really, really lucky to get to do this work.
We've got a pretty amazing team
to get to do this work with you too.
Yeah.
So thanks for being Casey
you.
Marcus. Just thanks for being.
Don't make me cry over here. What are you doing?
It's so easy to make you cry.
I know. I am a very big crybaby. Yeah. I get excited because I think that I don't even think we fully comprehend how big this is, and the impact that we're having, just because we're geeking out on surrogacy and something that we love so much. So it's been fun. And I feel like we've got some years of really beautiful growth in what we're doing. And we have such an amazing team, and that everybody is so passionate about what we're doing. It's really special.
It really is.
Yeah.